Hi everyone, and welcome back to Murder at Bedtime with me, your host Lyndon. If you are here for the first time, this is the second part of a two-part story. So please listen to the episode before this, or won't know where you are, much like me most of the time. If you are a returning watcher of this channel, you know I love you both. I'm only joking. I'm sure there's a few more of you out there, and I think you are all awesome. And if it's your second time because you just went back and listened to the first part, then I hope I can persuade you to stay. Anyway, this is a no waffle, no frills, 15-minute or so bedtime story. The waffle is all at the end. So when it finishes, you turn me off or let it run on for a little bit just to listen to my gobbledygook. And with that, let's get serious and crack on. So I think we left it with Scumbag Corner bursting at the seams and Stefan at his trial in Leeds awaiting his verdict. The jury were only out for 35 minutes and came back with a guilty verdict, and Stefan was sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge then praised the fantastic work of the awesome West Yorkshire police and praised the bravery of the young girls who came forward to identify the man who exposed himself to them. Stefan went straight to Armley Jail to begin his sentence and later was transferred to Wakefield Prison. While there, he was set upon by 5 inmates who beat him up, injuring his legs and ankles. They stole his watch and smashed up his radio. On the next occasion, he was hit over the head with a mop handle, requiring 3 stitches, and not even the prison chapel was safe, as on the next occasion he was punched full in the face there. He often found himself segregated for his own safety, as he would be. Ordinary prisoners and prison officers don't like child killers. Unfortunately, Stefan retreated into a world of illusion. He believed he was part of a government experiment where an innocent tax clerk was framed for a murder and put into prison to see how he coped with it. He even began to think his own mum was in on it. Even through constant probing by psychiatrists and doctors, constantly asking for a confession, and being told if he admitted to Lesley's murder, he could enter a sex offenders program and maybe get out on parole, Stefan refused, knowing that he would be admitting to something he hadn't done. Charlotte Kitzsco had escaped the Nazis during the war and then the Russian army. She'd escaped to the UK before settling in Rochdale in the north of the UK. She worked in the cotton mills and it was very hard work, but Charlotte was made of iron. She knew her son was innocent. He drove her every Sunday to tend her husband's grave. Then they looked round a garden centre, and then they would go to Stefan's favourite shop that sold German food. And that is exactly where he had been the time of Lesley's disappearance. And even after the abuse she had to take from Lesley's father outside the court after the sentence, something that I'm not very comfortable with, but then again, I've never been in his shoes. She decided to fight for her son, and that's exactly what she did. She campaigned tirelessly, so much so that people at first had sympathy for her after the verdict now started to desert her. She visited Stefan twice a month at Wakefield Prison. It was an 8-hour round trip on the bus. She would have gone more if she had been allowed. For over 10 years, Charlotte campaigned to get Stefan's case reviewed. In 1984, after running out of people to write to, she approached Justice, the UK human rights organisation. A very sceptical solicitor, Campbell Malone, agreed to look at the case. Malone got in touch with Philip Clegg. He was the junior counsel for the defence in Stefan's original trial. He was still very uncomfortable about how the defence handled the first trial. They put a little team together, and over the next 2 years, they prepared a petition to the Home Secretary, who was, guess who? Yep, Dodgy Dave Waddington, the original defence QC. He may be crap, but he still keeps rising. So unsurprisingly, this was shelved until just over a year later, when David Waddington donned his ermine robe and was transformed into Lord Waddington and took his seat in the House of Lords. You really couldn't make it up, could you? Anyway, it actually worked in Stefan's favour, because the new Home Secretary, Kenneth Baker, in 1991 reopened the case, and it was referred back to West Yorkshire Police. Oh no, I hear you groan, all set for the big cover-up. But no, unbelievably, this is where probably we meet the hero of this story, Detective Superintendent Trevor Wilkinson, the man assigned to look into the case again. Now, he could quite easily have covered it up and said his colleagues were beyond reproach. Even though he never worked on the case, he knew those who had. And it didn't take long before he realised that things weren't right, and he smelt a rat. He assembled a team that he knew he could trust to keep things quiet, and went about quietly picking apart the original investigation. Wilkinson found that the lady who owned the shop that stocked the German foods confirmed that Stefan and his mother were in the shop that lunchtime of Lesley's disappearance, but she was not called to give evidence at the trial. There was also a witness who saw him tending his father's grave just before that. He wasn't called either. The girls who'd said Stefan had exposed themselves to them were now found out to be the liars that they really were. Their excuse? We were kids. It was just a laugh. Yep, and you had 16 years of being adults to admit that, but you didn't. They showed no remorse and never apologised for their behaviour. But the slam dunk was when the sticky tape samples were found that had been used to get evidence off Lesley's clothes. These were sent to forensics and found low count sperm heads. Stefan did not even produce any sperm. He was tested by forensic scientist Ronald Outridge. I told you we'd get back to him 16 times, and it was found that Stefan could not produce sperm. Outridge at the trial stated that the killer was infertile. He didn't lie, but he suppressed evidence that would have cleared Stefan. In August 1991, the findings were passed to Home Secretary Kenneth Baker, who immediately passed them on to the Court of Appeal. So 10 months before the parole board was going to meet, where they would maybe let Stefan out as long as he admitted killing Lesley, instead, on the 17th of February 1992, in front of 3 appeal judges, the defence's evidence was heard. It was overwhelming. The prosecution offered no case. After hearing it, Lord Chief Justice Lane declared, "It has been shown this man cannot produce sperm." Therefore, this man cannot be responsible for ejaculating over the girl's knickers and skirt, and consequently, this man cannot have been the murderer. Now, Lord Lane ordered Stefan to be released immediately. Stefan Kitzsco had been in prison for 16 years. Nobody ever apologised to him, apart from, ironically, the Molseed family, who apologised to Stefan and his mother for shouting abuse at them. I think that really shows the character of the Molseed family and the lack of anything from the West Yorkshire police, the four girls, and the man that Charlotte said should have been strung up, David Waddington. Stefan couldn't go home immediately. He needed to stay in hospital for 12 weeks so they could try and mend him enough to let him go home. When he could eventually go home, he told the press he wanted to get married, go to America and visit Australia. But in real life, Stefan was broken and mostly stayed inside all the time, staring out of the windows. On the night of December the 21st, 1993, Stefan kissed his mum and said goodnight and climbed the stairs to bed. Minutes later, she heard a loud crash. She rushed upstairs, but in his room, she found her big, gentle giant of a son laying on the floor, dead of a massive heart attack. He was only 41 years old and had been released from prison less than 2 years, and before he received the £500,000 that had been awarded to him. His mum Charlotte, who had fought so hard for her son for so many years and had probably been ill herself for a long time, herself now gave up the fight, and she died too just 4 months later. What an amazing woman. Stefan may be dead, but she ensured he died an innocent man. In July 1994, the lead investigators of the Lesley Molseed murder case, former Chief Superintendent Jack Dibb, Detective Superintendent Dick Holland, and leading forensic scientist Ronald Outridge were formally charged with suppressing evidence. Jack Dibb had died, so of course the other two tried to blame him for everything. It was found through passage of time and loss of vital documents that the charges against Holland and Outridge be stayed. It never went before a jury. No one was ever held accountable for what happened to Stefan Kitzsco. So what about the real murderer, I hear you ask? Well, I think I had better tidy up the loose ends, even though this story was about Lesley and Stefan. And I really don't want to spend too much time on this scumbag. With the advances in DNA, on the 5th of November 2006, 53-year-old Ronald Castry, a comic book shop owner, was arrested for a sexual attack on a young girl. His DNA was taken and put through the database and was found to be an exact match for the DNA on Lesley's knickers. Castry's trial began at Bradford Crown Court on the 22nd of October 2007. He was found guilty and given a life sentence with a recommendation to serve 30 years. Did he commit more murders in those 30 years? Apparently not, but it's very unusual for a killer to murder in such a frenzy, then never do it again. Anyway, I think Scumbag Corner is too good for him, so rot in hell, Ronald Castry. A lot of this story is to do with Stefan, but please spare one last thought for the biggest victim here, the little smiley bubbly 11-year-old girl who went to the shops for her mum and never returned, and the rest of the Molseed family who have had to live with that loss every day. A very sad story, and a story that always makes me angry now when I read about it. Anyway, it's that time where you shut me up or you listen on to a bit of me waffling. If you're going, good night, sleep well, and if you're still here, thank you for the lovely feedback you all sent me after the first episode in this Lesley and Stefan story about my red flowery curtains. It's not quite the feedback I was expecting, but I'm very pleased you like them, and just to confirm, they are curtains and not wallpaper. On another note, just to let you know that Debbie Q, the mistress of murder, and myself are doing another collaboration of her Right Shoe podcast. After the popularity of the Springfield 3 that went down so well, we thought we would have a stab at the West Memphis 3. And if that goes well, all further collaborations will have a 3 in them. And I think that is it for this week. Just a quick thank you to Jonathan Seageff for my intro, Cursed Lullaby, and just to say, be careful of those frogs in boxes. They're all totally bonkers. Now, if you could subscribe to this channel, that would be lovely, and it really does help. So sleep well, everybody, and hope we all meet again soon. Night night.